best-selling author of The Pimp Game. As seen on National Geographic series Trafficked. The one who tells it like it is, Mickey Royal.
How you want to start this off?
It's up to you. Just like our normal conversations. Whatever's on your mind.
You're an interesting character.
Yeah.
You got a lot of things going on. You got some gangster going on. You got some pimping going on. You got a lot of street life, it seems like.
Yeah, and it doesn't really seem like it because I didn't sign up for it. It's kind of like being drafted.
It's all about choices.
Yeah.
So with that lifestyle, was there a choice?
Oh, yes and no. Yes, because there's always a choice. You know, you can't negate accountability and responsibility, but no, because I think I was 13. So how good of a choice can you make at 13? And it was just a gradual ascend or descend, depending on how you look at it. You know what I mean? It's like when you start off at McDonald's, you know, you might be on fries or might be mopping, and then you move up to burgers. And next thing you know, when they come back see you 6 years later, you're assistant manager. They come back and see you 4 years later, you're manager. You know, 15 years later, you own the spot and you got another one. You're still at McDonald's. But you stayed within that building or that structure. So you just went from that to that to that. So when they asked you when you were 15, where you work, McDonald's, they asked you, what do you do for a living at 60? McDonald's. But you're not doing the same thing you were doing at 16. But you're still at McDonald's.
You see where it leads to. You start with fries, usually, you know, it will lead to management or general manager or whatever. You can see the levels, and there are people ahead of you where, you know, you saw where they got from flipping fries in the beginning.
Exactly.
The thing with gangster life, you can see the levels also.
Yeah.
And usually it's always just two outcomes. You know,
I've had them both.
You graduated, well, you haven't died. So
I actually died twice, but they brought me back.
Oh, look at that.
I can explain that whole thing to you. Once at 12, once at 14.
Was this you in the lifestyle doing
Well, 12, actually, I was chasing a kid across the street playing hide and go seek. And the kid I was chasing, he ended up getting shot in the head a few years later. That was Sal Dog from Crenshaw Mafia, but we weren't in that kind of life then. We were kids, we played hide and go seek. And you know how when you point them out and you find out where they are, if they run to base and touch it before you touch them, then they're safe. So he darted out in front of a car. I didn't even look, ran behind him, got ran over by a Trans Am speeding down the street.
Oh, wow.
And the last thing I remember seeing was the axle of the car under it. And next thing I know,
it went over you.
Yeah. Broke 2 legs, broke a couple of ribs, broke my hand. My skull was, I had that concussion thing going on. And the ribs would hurt the most because I couldn't inhale and I couldn't exhale really. But when I woke up, they were cutting my pants off. The paramedics, and they had apparently done CPR or whatever.
Wow.
I remember when I woke up, I felt no pain. That I was in the life, and I was selling rocks on the corner on the borderline between 90 and Inglewood Family. But I was on the Inglewood side, like around 3rd Avenue, not too far from Warren Lane. And some 90s came through there and they said what they said. And a friend of mine, he said what he said. And we used to call it tuka 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 tuka. We used to make that noise, right? And we used to say, whenever you hear that word run, that noise run. Because that's what they would do this. They would drive all the way to the end of the block. And you know how a cutlass is when it makes a U-turn. American car, when you cut the wheel, it starts bouncing a little bit. And it makes that little tuka tuka tuka. I'm like, they coming back. So I figured they'd come back and say some more. Nah, it came back shooting. I was shot in the chest. Anthony was shot in the thigh, but he was shot with a 22. I was shot with a 25. His bullet ricocheted through his body and went through his heart. He died right there.
Oh, wow.
He was 13. I was 14. I lived. And that's why when you see me pose in a lot of my muscle pictures, I have my arms crossed. It's not because I'm flexing. It's because I'm sensitive about my scars on my chest.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I'm covering my scars. I don't mind wearing tank tops because it cover, but if I have a bare chest, you'll see me pose on my arms like that. I'm covering my hands on my scars.
Well, it looks like that typical jail pose, though.
Yeah, so I get away with it. But when they see me like in the shower, in prison, stuff like that, they be like, damn, what the hell happened to you? I said, it's a long ass story. You know, because that cut me quite a bit to get all the fragments out and shit.
You would think at 14, that type, 2 times almost dying. And the second time was because of the lifestyle. You would think that would have been the changer right there.
It actually wasn't. It actually worked in reverse because when I got out the hospital, I was entering the 9th grade. So when I went to school, I had them drainage bags under my arms. You know, you have to empty them and then the blood comes out. You got them little tubes in you and stuff. So I had a story to tell. And, we're going to keep it real. When you live in a certain lifestyle and in that neighborhood, you're talking about the 80s at the time, the more bullet wounds you had or knife marks you had, it was higher up.
Yeah.
So I felt invincible. So I figured this is it because I'm getting attention.
Right.
You know what I mean? Girls like, oh, you've been shot. Ooh. Huh?
You had battle wounds.
I had battle wounds. A lot of them dudes had stories, but I have actual, like, I can show you.
Right.
So I was on another level at that point. So actually, in my mind, at that time, with that frame of mind, I felt it was the best thing that ever happened to me.
So where were you affiliated with, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, when you go down Inglewood was all blood. You got a few Crip pockets, but they're small. You got 10 Deuce Raymond, you got IVC, Imperial Village Crip, you got Watergate Crip on that side. I don't know if there are any Crips on the other side of Inglewood. And on the other side of Inglewood, you got Queen Street Bloods, you got 7-7 Family on that side. That's the Inglewood High School side. I'm from the Morningside High School side. So when you're going down Crenshaw Boulevard,
Centinela Park and all that?
Yeah, that's the other side.
Okay.
You know, you might have rolling 60s rolling through there.
Right.
You know, but on the Morningside side, when you're going south, once you cross Century, once you cross Manchester, you're in 7-7, the edges of it. You keep going, once you cross Florence, excuse me, and there's some 60s over there too. That's why it's a conflict. Once you cross Manchester, you're in Inglewood. It says that welcome to Inglewood sign between Florence and Manchester. Once you go across Manchester, you're in 9 Deuce Family. That's the beginnings of it, 92nd. And at that time, that was the biggest Inglewood gang. And all the blood gangs go down. At least they did then. Look, because Crips outnumbered like 5-1. So once you pass Century, I'm visualizing because I'm not in LA anymore. You're going down. When you get to, once you cross Manchester, once you get to Century, there's other borderline sets right there, Hard Time Hustler, some other Crip sets and shit, but you're still in 9 Deuce. Once you cross Century, now you're in Crenshaw Mafia. And when you hit 104th Street, if you make a right towards the Bottoms and Morningside, that's Crenshaw Mafia. People think all of that is Crenshaw Mafia. No, it's not. When you make a left and go up the hill, that's Avenue Pyru Bloods. And then but they don't claim 104th, they claim 108th. At the end of the avenues.
Crenshaw Mafia.
Yeah, but that's not the neighborhood I grew up in. I grew up in Avenue Pyru. But as parents get divorced, my mother got cancer, the economic situation changed. So we went from the top of the hill down to the bottom of the hill. And that was all Mafia. And when you get to 111th, between Crenshaw and Prairie, that's Center Park Bloods. But it didn't matter because all Bloods got along.
Right.
So you can be from Mafia and you go up to Center Park up at Worthington Elementary where they used to conjugate, and you just get handshakes and love and just play basketball with them. Because blood was blood. It didn't matter where you went, Denver Lane, Bounty Hunter. If you were from blood, it was all good. Now, from what I hear, they're all individual. But it wasn't like that then.
Individual meaning Bloods are fighting Bloods? Because that never used to be the case.
I can't confirm that, but I heard some drama happen, and I don't know what it was over between Mass Swans and Bounty Hunters. And I heard Bounty Hunters don't call themselves Bounty Hunter Bloods no more. They just call themselves Bounty Hunters. Now, I can't confirm that because I haven't spoken to a bounty hunter about it. I did time with him, and I was in a halfway house with same dude. A couple of bounty hunters. One of them was on soft underbelly or something like that.
You know, you in your bio, you have this phrase, this label, gangster aristocrat.
Yeah, criminal aristocrat.
Because you almost make it almost sounds like something you would want to aspire to be.
I did.
Wow.
And it was, to me, you know, having a Black Panther mother and a Sunni Muslim father and growing up in Pan-African schools. You know where, you from LA?
Yeah, yeah.
So you hip to Marcus Garvey Elementary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's where I went into the 5th grade.
Right on
So,
Slauson.
huh?
Right on Slauson.
Well, that's where it is now, but it used to be on 54th. It's a
Okay.
pink building now. It's next door to Karanga's place.
Okay. So
That's
it's
where
not Slauson anymore.
No, it's on Slauson.
Okay. Okay.
But when I was a kid, it was on 54th. They moved over to Slauson to that really big, pretty building.
Right. Right.
When I went, it was like an 8-car garage. It used to be a mechanic spot. It was real small with a little upstairs and stuff. But they moved over.
It's a special school.
Yes, it is. You know, we learned Swahili there. We had to sing Lift Every Voice and Sing every morning. You know, we had Swahili classes. I knew who George Washington Carver was before I knew who George Washington was. Because I remember asking my mother, who's this on the $1 bill? And she said, that's George Washington. And I said, ooh, she was taking me to school. And I said, ooh, his mother named him after George Washington Carver. But that's the school I'm coming from. We didn't have any American or Caucasian influence whatsoever. In my mind, at that time, the whole world was Black. We had classes where we had to adopt a revolutionary. You know, I adopted Jamil Al-Amin. He was H. Rap Brown at the time, and I liked him because he wore cool glasses with the little points in the end. That's the same ones I wear. So we had to, you know, adopt a revolutionary per month. You know, things like that. Like when people are watching the Fred Hampton story and Mark Clark, I was hearing that stuff in kindergarten, 1st grade.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that was the school. But in the 6th grade, I went to public school. I started Warren Lane. That was my first like introduction to that, and it was a culture shock. I had a white teacher.
Well, your mom being a Panther, did she grow up in the Bay?
No. Los Angeles, the Bunchy Carter crew.
Okay.
You know.
So I didn't know of a big. I didn't know of a. I didn't know there was many Panthers in LA. I thought it was.
Oh, there were Panthers down south.
Well, I know they were everybody, but it was all when you spoke of the ones in Cali. It was usually seemed like it was the Bay, in Oakland, you know, in SF.
Well, the biggest one in Cali was Bunchy Carter. He was a former gangbanger with the Slauson Boys, and he joined the Panthers, and you know he got assassinated up there at UCLA, and you know Karanga's name comes up in that, and I wasn't there. I think I was 1. So I have no idea what went down, but his name came up in that. The US organization, you know, and it's never been denied nor confirmed. And John Huggins was killed in that shootout also, and supposedly in the hallway in the library or something like that. You can Google it. And Erica Huggins would know more about that, John Huggins' wife. Because I remember the picture of her being taken out of there crying.
You just mentioned Slauson Boys.
Yeah.
That's old school there.
That's real old. That's before Crippin.
Slauson was Barry White.
He was a Slauson boy?
Yeah.
And you had the businessmen, the Slauson Boys. I don't remember some of the Gladiators.
Yeah.
That's some 60s coming out of the civil rights movement gangs.
So, from gangster to pimp.
What was the intervention in there? Because when you grow up a certain way, you enjoy doing wrong, but you know what right is. Mm-hmm. So around 9th grade, I joined the FOI. And I still had 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Keep in mind, when I talk about high school, I was in high school 6 years.
Why? What's the line between that? You know,
because a friend of mine at the school, and then Brother James, he let me hear a tape of Farrakhan. It was 1985, Washington, D.C., about the bombing of John Africa. And even though I came from the schools I came from, and I heard Malcolm X speak and all that, I never heard nobody speak like that who wasn't dead. And I said, whatever he's talking about, it sounds right, and that's what I want to be. And he said, well, we got study group on Wednesday. I'll come pick you up. My father, that was Brother Kenneth. I don't know how many exes he had at the time. He had a few, like 3 exes, so I can't remember, but it was Brother Kenneth. He sold the suits when we was on Western, 45th and Western. And his son is Brother James, and he came down and they honked the horn. I ran outside and went to my first meeting, and that was that. Once I heard that study group, I was like, I like this. And that's when Wazir, that's way before Tony got to LA. That was Brother Wazir. I think he's passed on because he was old then. And
Wazir.
That's when the mosque was on 45th and Western.
Okay.
Muhammad's Mosque 27. And next thing I know, I was selling bean pies on Crenshaw and Florence after school every day. Still trying to keep one foot in that life, but the more that I got into religion, because I was basically raised atheist. You know, my parents were more so, I mean, my father was Sunni Muslim, but once they got divorced, the principles were more Marxist related. You know, I mean, as the second, third grader, I knew names like Carlos the Jackal and Che Rivera and Mao Zedong and Ho Chi Minh. Those were just household names that you heard. And words like coup were mentioned at the table a lot. Not revolution, because that's just change. Coup is total reversal. And, you know, I would hear things like that. You know, I had an uncle that was with SNCC, so I came from a really political background. Even though I started doing knucklehead things, that was always in your back of your mind because that's where your core was, you know? So it went from 1 foot in, 1 foot out to both feet in, the NOI. So by the time I was at Washington High School, I was full-fledged up for a while.
So what? Okay, but full-fledged that, but still, what about the other activities? The thing, because it seems like that didn't stop. It seems almost like you were double agent kind of thing. You live in these two different lifestyles. I mean, it's two different.
It was exactly that, but I looked at it as just doing. I was doing it as doing things I enjoy. You know, there was no more gangs and stuff. I didn't do that gang bang stuff for like a year and a half. It just didn't make sense. But selling crack made sense. You know, and when I became full-fledged up for a while, there was no more crack dealing whatsoever.
The belief system.
Audio. You said what?
Isn't that against the belief system?
You remember, like Iceberg Slim, at one time he tried to become a Black Panther, and they refused him because he was in the pimp game. But in his mind, he saw it as going against the system, even being a pimp. So in my mind, from gang banging to revolutionary, it was pretty much the same thing, or even drug dealing. It was just anti-establishment. So to me, it was no blurred lines. It was just more focused.
You learned how to rationalize it.
I had to.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. Just to to function, basically.
Yeah, I had to, and that's a dangerous practice because you get into the fact that everything I do is okay. I can make it okay. Everything I do. It's for the greater good. It's okay. You'll thank me later. So, you know, dangerous is the man who thinks he can do no wrong.
Did it come a point where you stopped because of that, or did things stop you? Like, you know, either an incident or jail or.
Well,
you know, what was the stopping point?
I have bipolar disorder. So when I focus on something, it becomes extreme. I only live in extremes. So once I really, I mean, you join the nation, you selling pies, all of that, and you rolling with the fruit. But, you know, you go into places like San Diego doing posts. That's when the Stop the Killing movement started. And I got very serious. And during that transition, you know, Mike Conception.
Yeah.
He had a chance to witness that transition because when he met me, I had a jerry curl. But then all of a sudden, my head is shaved. And I'm coming over his house with bow ties and stuff. So I'm writing songs and stuff with Warner Brothers. All of a sudden, the lyrics changed and the focus changed, and it went from less Eazy-E-ish and more Public Enemy-ish.
Okay.
You know, and he saw me changing. You know, he would make bean pie jokes and shit like that because he knew a lot of the brothers that was in the NOI too. You know, so he would say, ask so-and-so about me and ask such and such. And I wasn't studying none of that gangster stuff between those few years. My whole life was, we're going to change the world. And you get seduced. I got seduced back. I was born woke, got lulled to sleep, woke up again, because I didn't get lulled to sleep, I pushed snooze. Woke up again, And then once I went to sleep again, I didn't wake up again. I was 41 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, that allure brought me back to the streets. I couldn't, the power, the women, you know, and it eventually gradually went into from there to pimping. Because once I hit 18, I was coming out of, you know, certain things happened I don't want to mention, but certain things turned me off from the FOI. But I was
Mm-hmm.
still, you know, I had Islamic Jihad tattooed on my arm, you know, and I was dealing with certain groups, the Weathermen, Muslim Brotherhood, you know, the Islamic Jihad, and because you meet people. When you start going to the NOI mosque, you meet certain brothers that's NOI and Sunni. So then I ended up going to the Sunni mosque, and every day I was at some kind of mosque or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then next thing you know, you meet people from other countries. And then you get whispers in this ear, whisper in that ear. And I have a habit, I don't say no to anything. You know, I used to always tell people, don't threaten me with a good time, or I would say something like, I'll try anything twice. You know, so they say, we're having this other meeting. Don't tell anyone about it. Would you like to come? Yep, sure. Why? I ain't doing nothing. You know, the Flintstones don't come on until 8. You know, so I'm like, why not? Well, we're going to do X, Y, and Z in this town. Would you be okay with that? Sure, let's go. Why? I don't have anything to do. It ain't like I got a date tonight. I mean, I just didn't care.
Mm-hmm.
Having a low threshold for boredom. I learned later about serotonins and adrenalines and all that, and it was just an adrenaline junkie. The more closer it became to life-threatening, the more excited I was about doing it.
So let me see. Is this the order? Gangster life, something in between, pimping, and then the porn industry.
You got it.
That's the order?
That was the order, basically.
Wow, okay.
Guys at the barbershop used to call me X. You know, they used to call me X Malcolm, but then they started calling me just X. And I remember Cheyenne Fox, she was with me, former porn star. She said, why do they call you X? I said, oh, Malcolm X is a former minister who became a pimp. He's a former pimp who became a minister. I said, I'm a former minister who became a pimp. He went from pimping and selling drugs to the FOI. I went from the FOI to pimping and selling drugs. So they used to call me X Malcolm. Like, dude, you did it backwards. So it just got shortened to X. So when I walk into the barbershop, they go, X, what's happening, man? X. I said, it goes back to when I was like 18, 19.
Well, it's not too far from when they say a lot of pimps used to be preachers, or
Well,
vice versa.
in one of my pimp games, I got a third one coming out. It's not in the first one, but it's in the second one or third one. The second one is already out. I talk about the 3 Ps, the pimp, preacher, and the politician. It's all the same ism. Ex-pimps can easily transform into ex-preachers. Ex-preachers can easily turn into politicians. None of the 3 pay taxes. All the 3 speak the same game. It's just that a pimp, he's speaking in a microcosmic fashion to maybe 10 women. A preacher is speaking to maybe 3,000 people, and a politician is speaking to 300 million. They're saying the same exact thing. That's why they can go back and forth. And that's why sometimes when you listen to a preacher, you say, he sounds like a pimp. And sometimes when you listen to a politician, you be like, you know, when Obama speaks, he kind of sounds like a preacher. Well, that's not a coincidence with that. It's the same thing. You know timetables. I may know algebra, but promise me, it's mathematics. All of it. And it's going to sound similar back and forth. You're like, you know what? I was taking trigonometry. It sounds a little bit like calculus. That's not by accident. It's mathematics still.
I'm looking at some of the titles of these movies.
What you mean? With the
Filthy,
book?
Filthy Ghetto Dykes.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
Grannies in Land. Black Chunky Chicks.
Yeah, those are all mine.
3,200 pounds of cocksuckers.
That was a fun one.
Wow.
And that was all directed by Mickey Rourke. Huh?
You know, it's a lot of grannies in here, but it reminds me, I remember me and Cozy went somewhere one time, and it was some old chicks walking, and you're like, I hit that. And I'm like, dude, for real? And you're like, yeah, I hit that. And from these titles now, I see you've been hitting that.
Yeah.
She looked like she was at least about 60, 70, man.
Felicia Rashad is 72, Cher is 73. I do a threesome with them both right now. I do a threesome with both at 25.
There you go, rationalizing it again.
Yeah. You lose a lot of inhibitions when you're in the adult film industry.
Okay.
You know, and it's
How
almost that same.
have to be in that field to lose for those inhibitions to like?
You said what?
How long do you be in there before you start, experimenting a little more like that?
Well, you're from pimping, so you're and a lot of girls were strippers. A lot of them did in-call, out-call. So, and a lot of them lived with me. I had different houses, so I'm used to naked, beautiful women walking around me 24 hours a day. When I wake up to 3 women in the bed, I know I went to bed with 2 of them. I woke up with 3. They're always nude. They're always dressing or undressing. So you don't even feel like it's women anymore. You feel like you're in the locker room playing football and guys are undressing, but you're keeping eye contact while you're talking, and you might be talking about 57 Chevys. You don't realize that you're in front of a naked man, because you're a football team.
Right.
Well, these were just my teammates. After a while, it's not like I'm in a room full of naked women. Wow. It's like they're getting dressed to go get this money. They're getting ready for work. They're preparing for battle. That's the way I saw them. So once you become comfortable with that, I hooked up with Elizabeth Sweet, and she was doing swinger parties.
Mm-hmm.
But she was doing it on a full-time, full-scale level. And voyeur parties, I'm like, okay, what's a voyeur party? Because I always say yes to everything.
Mm-hmm.
So once she hit me to that life, now instead of being in a room with 10 naked girls, I wasn't in porn yet. I was still in my late 20s. Now I'm in a room with 40 couples having sex at the same time. And it's like amazing, only the first time. But when you're doing this day after day, because you're collecting, they're paying like $200 to get in.
Well, you said it's amazing. Why do you say it's amazing?
Because I've never been in a room with 40 people having sex at one time.
Because that could be for somebody that can be for one person that could be amazing, and for the next person that could be terrifying.
Yeah, well, I'm a bit of a deviant, so to me it was like, this is the next level of kink. And then I saw the bag she was collecting as far as money, and I said, "You get paid to do this?" And I said, "You didn't sleep with anybody?" She said, "No." She said, "These are swinger parties. Couples pay $200 to get in." She said, "It's about 30 couples here, so that's $6,000. And they have sex with each other from 8 to 12. So in 4 hours, I made $6,000. I'm going to do this Wednesday. Then I'm going to do it again Friday. Then I'm going to do it again Sunday." She said, because most of the people at the swinger parties, they're retired. So it's mostly 40 above.
Mm-hmm.
Only on the weekends, you might see some young people. So
what's the ethnicity of these parties?
Well, unfortunately, we live in America, so everything's defined by race. So swinger parties, the swingers network is defined by, you have white swinger parties, black swinger parties, and you have mixed swinger parties, which is any race.
Mm-hmm.
And hers were primarily black swinger parties. And I didn't get into throwing white swinger parties till I got into porn, because I got introduced to another crowd.
Mm-hmm.
You get into to the Wall Street guys, you get introduced to the Hollywood guys, your Epstein's and shit. So right. I'm like, they're like, "How much to get in?" I'm like, 500. They're like, "That's it?" They're like, "Oh, this is getting good. Can I bring friends?" "Bring as many as you like." Lawyers can come down. $500 is nothing to them for what I can provide.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody gets lucky at my party, because I used to, when I was in porn and I started doing swinger parties like in my early 30s, I would bring in ringers, because you had a certain amount of single guys who came in. They paid more to get in.
You said
I want to. Ringers means these are porn stars that I've already paid to have sex with guys who had money but didn't bring anybody. Because a lot of them had that anxiety. They don't even know how to approach a chick. Mm-hmm. So I would whisper to her, "Go make him happy. He paid $500 to be here. Go do this for me for $150.
Right.
I kept $350, but he was happy. And you know what happens? He came back again and again, and he brought more and more and more. So girls knew that when they finished from the strip club or whatever, because I knew girls who just did porn, I knew girls who just danced, I knew girls who just walked the track, I knew girls who were just call girls, and I knew girls who were all of those. So I was always I used to tell people my Rolodex keeps at least 200-300 working girls in it. So I would invite them, and they would pay to even work my parties sometimes. You know, so I was always
So
around that.
occupations all in the pimp game, basically.
All of it. It's just that sometimes in interviews they want you to meet a Hollywood narrative. So when they interview you, they're like, "So when did you pimp slamper?" I said, "Stop watching movies, please." I said, "Stop watching movies." I said, "On the track, yeah, I started on 83rd and Figueroa." I said, "I was in my early 20s." I said, "By the time I was 26, I had houses." And what I would do is, because it was easier to rent a house than an apartment. Apartments got background checks. You got to have credit. When you rent somebody's house, you just show up with cash, 2 months, and they just give you the keys. So it was like maybe let's say from 3 to 5 bedroom house. So if you got a 4-bedroom house, you can put 5 girls in there. So I would get the 4-bedroom house. I might have 3 girls with me. Well, they talk. So by the time a week comes past, I got 7 now. Well, we can't all fit in here. So you leave 4 in there because they have each one has a bedroom, and sometimes it's one extra because sometimes they have their own place elsewhere. And I said, you can occupy your own place, but when you're here, you're on duty. I don't care if it's 2, 3 in the morning, that phone rings, you answer it. And so I had to rent another one. So you take those leftover 2 with you. So that's where you live now with them, even though you got another house functioning. And then it grows. So I got to move again. I had one point, man, I had 5 places I was planning to rent on. I used to call them stores. Because yeah, I'm paying $2,500 a month, but I'm picking up $3,000-4,000 a day from each one. So I had a place. People used to ask me, "Where do you actually live?" I said, "I'm homeless." I said, "I'm paying 5-6 rent. I'm homeless." You know. And sometimes you might meet a woman who's already doing this, who wants to do it with you, and she already has a 2-bedroom spot. So you put another girl in there. Sometimes
You mentioned Figueroa. Why was Fig like that? Why was that the whole stroll? It seems like.
I remember my parents came to LA in the early 70s, late 60s. It was already a track. It was already established track then. You know, that's where Sam Cooke got killed by an Asian prostitute.
Right.
You know, so people been buying sex off Figueroa. I have an uncle that got there in the 60s, and he said it was already a track then. So its origins, I wouldn't know. But ever since I was like 4th grade, you know, they be telling you, you know, go out on Figueroa, you get some money, you know.
Right. It was certain streets that were just known for that kind of, and like in Hollywood, it was like Sunset.
Yeah.
That was like, you know, the whole stroll basically.
I've worked those, but Hollywood in the daytime, I tell people, is different than Hollywood at night. See, Hollywood was a good in-call spot when I ran my call girl type thing, because when I used to pick these houses, you know, we didn't have the internet then. We talking about the 90s and stuff. So I had to pick places that were right off the freeway because a lot of my customers are coming from Orange County. So my first house was in Inglewood. I tell people it was in Inglewood, but it wasn't Inglewood. It's considered LAX. It's close to the airport. So I can get that because people want to dip in and dip out. You know, 60-year-old white men do not want to go to Compton to meet some chick. You know, so you got to be right off certain freeways. 101, 405 were good. I stayed out of North Hollywood. I used to tell people they call it NoHo for a reason. You know, so, and I stayed under the radar. I had policemen who were clients. You know, I would meet some of them through my swingers party. I would tell you how bold I was. I wish I had old copies of my old business card. I had a business card that, you know, how to kind of go straight up and down, not sideways, when I was in porn. And I had porn stars' pictures on it, who were also some stripping, some doing in-call, and some of them were just strictly movies. And I had my name on there, Mickey Royal, and it said manager on it. And it said of adult entertainers, manager of independent adult entertainers. And you know the police station that Dolomite got out of, in the original Dolomite, that's on King Boulevard. It was Santa Barbara back then. Back when
Southwest Station. That's like
right.
36 and Dicker.
You know, now they got that wall in front of it. And I went right up in Southwest Station. I had my cards in a rubber band, and I handed my cards to the cops at the front. And I said, pass these out to some of your officers because we're available for bachelor parties. And we thought, because swinger parties are legal. And I said, and he's just looking at me with his mouth wide open.
Station and did that.
Yeah, I went there and I went to the fire station over by Washington High School and did the same thing. And the policeman kept trying to give them back to him. I said, no, he was at the front desk. And I said, no, no, keep these. We do bachelor parties. We're very law enforcement friendly, blah, blah, blah. And he did, I noticed, that's when I know I had him, because he flipped the card on the back. With the other pictures, he flipped it forward, then he flipped it back again and held it for a minute. And then he kind of shooed me away because there was somebody behind me. And I was talking kind of low. And I walked out, got in my caddy and rolled out. And about 6 weeks later, the phone rang. And it was a policeman's brother having a bachelor party. And
Wow.
you get to shake hands. And, you know, if I happen to have a problem, can I call you? And, you know,
Wow.
I remember the quote from Frank Costello, a wise guy from the Genovese family. He said it's much more effective to hit a guy over the head with a wad of money than hit him with a bullet. You'll get much more out of him hitting him with a wad of money. So, and plus, what I was offering was not illegal. You can call it immoral, but it wasn't illegal. So I figured, why not go into the police station? There are a bunch of guys. And I didn't see him put the cards up. I said, because I still had them in a rubber band. And whatchamacallit, he just took them like, okay, next, like that. And I just walked out, went on about my life. Because when you're surrounded in that world, you feel everything you're doing is legal. That's all I knew. I knew porn distributors. I knew prostitutes. So as far as I was concerned, what I was doing was like the lightweight version of that world. You know what I mean? I am the legit part of the shadow world. So why not walk into a police station? You know, why not go up to USC while they're practicing and hand it out to the football players or to the Lakers and all of that? Why not? Because I figured this was legal. And the phone rang. And cards got passed out and it rang and it rang and it rang. So every day it was something to do. To the point where I had to have an address book with the little squares in it, those calendars. And the night before I would write down where I got to go and what I got to do. Meanwhile, things that's on the track is still going on. I was pulling away from the track. You know, I tell people all the time, a woman's not on the, only reason a pimp puts a woman on the track in today's time is to break down her self-esteem and to kill her spirit. Because keep in mind, she's only out there so cars to see her. I went to this site. I was the first one to go on Craigslist and sell that kind of stuff before it was an erotic services section.
Only reason, really?
Yeah. That's the only reason, because she's only out there to be seen. How many cars are going to see her? And if I have her picture on, I was on eros.com then, they're out of San Francisco, some Russians, and I got to mail my stuff to it. You couldn't even click and upload an email then. You had to actually take a physical picture, write down all the stuff, have a copy of the girl's identification, and mail it. And then they would post your ad within 3 or 4 days of receiving it. And I used to go on Craigslist, and I could keep posting, and the girl would go up at the top. Once it was erotic services, they got hip, and they had to pay. By then, I wasn't even on Craigslist anymore. But if she's only out there to be seen, how many cars are going to see her in 10 hours she's out there? And how many people are going to see her picture on this website around the world? So that's, and when I got into porn, everything exploded because I don't have, you know, Trailer Park Becky or Bus Stop Tasha. I have this woman that's on a box cover that's all around the world, and you can contact me to get in touch with her. So you have people flying in, because it's like I told in one interview, how much would you pay to have sex with a Puerto Rican girl from New York? You might say $200. How much would you pay to have sex with Cardi B? The price is a lot higher. So my job is to make this Puerto Rican girl Cardi B. Now, I didn't have a record company, but I didn't have a porn production company. So once I put her on the box cover, now she's a star. She's not $200 anymore. She's not even $1,000 anymore. She's several $1,000s. And because she's not standing outside where 100 cars can see this $200 girl, now 10 million people see this $3,000 girl. And it just multiplied. And I didn't need as many women at that time. I figured I'd rather have 4 porn stars under my belt than 20 street walking chicks. And I tell people, when you buy something off the street, how much do you pay for it? You ever bought a TV off the street? It can be in a box. I ain't giving you no more than $50. But if you put it in a store, have nice surroundings, have clean aisles, that same TV goes to $250. It's the same one, but nothing off the street is going to get retail price. I don't care if it's a car. I don't care if it's a woman. I don't care if it's a television. If it's on the street, it's cheap. So that's what kind of deterred me from the streets after that.
During your pimping career,
Mhm.
how many girls will you say you've had?
Been through? Oh God.
Been-
Well in the big hundreds. If I say from pimping all the way up to porn and swinger parties and dealing with all of that, at least close to
Mhm.
almost 1,000.
Okay, so let's say that 1,000. That's the number. So out of that 1,000, how many do you think came out okay?
That's a heavy question.
Because you can really, I mean, that lifestyle can fuck you up. And
I mean,
most of
it
the
came out
time,
okay. If I had
hmm?
to estimate, I would say, and this is cold-blooded to say, but I never lie. I always tell people I live too much truth to ever tell a lie. I would say maybe 20%. 20%. And when you say okay, I don't mean like dead or anything like that. I mean not where they have severe PTSD and not to the point where they need therapy. I would say 20, maybe 30%. Most of them, it reshapes your reality. And even when they go into the square life, they still view their husband as a trick.
Really, they can't shake that type of
Well, I
thinking.
remember one of Gorgeous used to tell me, once a hoe, always a hoe.
So that rings true.
Yeah, that doesn't mean she's messing with other men. She has a checks and balances system in her head,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and she has to see everything as assets and liabilities. It warps your reality and warps your way of thinking, and it's hard to make the transition to go back. It changes who you are.
Mm-hmm.
So you see everything on that level. You see the game. If it happens if you're in the pimp game, you go to a used car lot or you hear a preacher and you be like, man, that's just game. What he's doing is, and you blah, 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 and break it down. And he may be doing that, but he may be sincere. But it
Mm-hmm.
almost puts you at a pessimistic point of view around everything because when you're out there in the life, you see it as it happens.
Mm-hmm.
Police, they're out on the street, they deal with certain things, but that's an 8-hour shift. Drug dealers sell drugs and go home. Pimps and hoes never go home. That is their home. They see everything, like they say about CNN. We're right there when it happens, as it happens. So we have
Mm-hmm.
all the stories. We know how that fire started. We know who shot whom because we never leave. You can't, and that's what I used to envy about the drug game because I knew drug dealers who had wives and children, and they could go to football games on the weekend. And I said, "This is my home. This is my family. There is no home to go to and escape this shit. This is it. These are my wives."
Say, let's put that number out there again, 1,000. um, how many of the how were there any that go into this like, I'm just going to just do this for this amount of time, this many years, stack a little bit and do this, like
I heard that. I used to hear
some
that from a lot.
that way, like I'm just going to be on my back for this long of time. I'm gonna stack, and then I'm gonna just, or going to school. Have to. I mean, what's the reality of that?
I remember Divine Brown saying that her lights had got cut off, and she needed like $190 something to pay a bill. And she told herself, "I'm gonna do this one time, get this money, pay this bill, and go home to my kids." She said, "The first time I did it, the first night out there on Hollywood Boulevard, I made $1,900." She said, "After that, you couldn't keep me out of there." So it's just like the drug game. You say you're going in and you have a perfect exit plan. I've heard that from a lot of girls in porn mostly, not so much in the whole game. I mostly heard that in porn. Well, I'm gonna just do a few movies and I'm gonna do that, but you can't. It sucks you in. And what happens is it's something innate in you that enjoys this,
Uh, so it's
and it
not
becomes an addiction.
how much of it you think is the money, quick money, the whole, or
They say it's the money, but not really. It's the lifestyle of being able to do what you want, when you want, how you want. You know, it might be some days I'm high as a kite. I used to have a Scooby-Doo van.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody who knows me knows I'm into my Scooby-Doo. You know, it's a regression thing. So I'm out at Venice Beach. I might be in my van for a day, just getting high. Two chicks just doing the thing, barbecuing, walking out. I mean, little hibachi, just almost bumming it up. And you get a phone call. You got to go pick up $8 grand from the valley. You drive out there. You know, you someone try to clean it up. You go get your money. You do 2-3 hours worth of work. You don't go do such and such else. It was basically how they could describe rock and roll: money for nothing and chicks for free. Because basically I was getting paid for nothing, something I probably would have done for free anyway as a younger man. And that's hard to leave. In the real world, you need results and responsibility. So when someone comes along and offers you more money, no responsibilities, no bosses, wake up when your eyes open. What time you wake up every day? When my eyes open. What time you go to bed? When they close. What do you do throughout the day? Exactly what I want. And people pay you for this every hour. You can't refuse that and go back to Walmart. It's just hard. You can say you can, and some have done it, but it's hard. It's easier said than done.
So your in your many careers in the crime world, did you ever look at one of them that way, where you're like, you know, I'm just going to be in this for a minute?
See, once I only sold crack as a youngster, but then the porn crowd introduced you to powder cocaine, but there was something in the middle of that.
Youngster meaning what ages?
Before 16.
Okay.
But I started selling powder because the clientele and the people I was around, they didn't smoke rocks. They snorted powder. And when I first started selling crack, I used to sell weed at school, because back then weed was considered a drug. And I would sell nickel bags and dime bags. I only sold like 3 dime bags because didn't nobody have $10, but everybody had 5. And I learned that multiplication, if you take this symbol and turn it 45 degrees, I mean that addition symbol, and turn it 45 degrees, it turns into a multiplication symbol. So I stopped even dealing with dime bags. I said, I can sell 4 nickel bags by second period. It might take me all day to sell a dime bag, because what 7th graders got $10?
Right.
They all had 5. And most of my clients in the 7th grade were girls. Very few dudes smoked weed then. All the girls were doing it. So again, now that brings me around a lot of girls, because a lot of girls didn't have that $5. Well, we can go in the boys' bathroom right quick and you can make it. You know, so that was always available daily.
Was that happening then?
Yeah. Which makes it hard to date regular girls who want you to meet their parents. I'm like, I just had 3 blowjobs by lunchtime. What the hell are you talking about?
Right.
You know? So that warps your, you know, you figure you go out on a date with a chick, if she ain't naked in 15 minutes, this is a waste of my time. Because that's what I was used to. Right. You know, and when you're selling crack, back then, young people didn't do that. So the women I was having sex with in the 7th grade were like 45 and 50 years old. So you're banging, probably that's what started that. Probably so. And you're banging them, so you go back to school and she's like, you know, you be my boyfriend for a while, I'll give you a kiss. I'm like, yeah, sure, you hold on to that. You know, so I didn't have a need to talk to girls my age, because I knew after school, I'm going to have sex with at least one of these women. Because I have a pocket full of rocks. Right. And they'll do God knows what for just one of them. And give you their friend too. So threesomes and orgies, I was doing that in junior high school.
I don't think you really answered the question though. As far
what was the question?
Did you ever like have that plan to like in any one of those?
Okay. Let's get back to that.
And get out of it.
That's what I was saying, that to say what? During my 20s, towards my late 20s, I discovered a place called Mexico. And at first I was dealing with some Russians, but they were saying they were getting these volumes from Russia. And then, you know, I did that for a little while and I stopped. Then I had this one prostitute, she was addicted to Valium. And it was a short, fat Mexican lady in Hollywood, used to come by to all the prostitutes' houses and sell them Valium. And I said, how much you pay for these pills? And she said, $10 each. They're 10 milligrams, they're real small and blue. And I said, how many of these you use a day? She said, 8 to 10. I said, so $3,000 of my money is going out the window on these volumes. Now, when you have small mind thinking, you would think, okay, she's stealing. I'm about to go upside her head. What I was thinking was, damn, you're one person. I'm in the wrong business. So I hooked up. When the Mexican lady came by, I bought quite a few for her. And then I started talking to her. And I found out that she sells them for 10. But there's a crew of Mexicans who buy them for $3. In Tijuana, they sell them for $1. So I started making runs and hooking up because I know the business structure of, you know, manufacturer, wholesaler, distributor, retailer, customer. And I didn't want to be a retailer. So in my spare time, I would go down there, and my first order for volumes was 100 to see what happened. And I came back and got the $300. Now, it took me all day because you have to go down there. They didn't say anything about you going across, but coming back from Mexico, you got that long ass line. So it sometimes takes 3 hours to even get out of line to get back from Tijuana. And I saw how easy it was. And they liked me because I was Black. See, a lot of Blacks don't get stopped at the border. They stop whites because we're not known for smuggling. And they're not looking for those, what they call those kind of drugs. They're looking for white powder. They're looking for people. If you got like people in your trunk, they don't care about that. So my next order, he said, how many can you bring? I said, as many as you need. So he said, bring back 5,000. And I said, that means I have to buy them. I said, what if you don't buy them from me? I don't know what to do with these things. Because I had, you know, that Mexican distributor, who's part of a Mexican gang. He said, okay, I'll give you the money up front, but I need a copy of your driver's license. I said, no problem. So I gave him a copy of my driver's license, my address and all of that. And I knew why. That meant that if you don't come back with my money, we're going to go to that address.
Right.
So I understand. I grew up in this. So he gave me 15. I went down there. I gave them 5. So I had 5,000 pills. And I put them in my glove compartment. 5,000 volumes will fit in a Cadillac's glove compartment. They're very little. And the bad part is they have to pop them out one at a time. So they get the 100, scoop it. So I had to start making advance orders, like I'll be back Friday, have them already popped out. Because they didn't cheat me out of one pill. And I remember saying, if these pills are counterfeit, he's probably going to kill me. Because he has an army. I have a few soldiers, but not like what they have. So I was like, let me see if they counterfeit. So I just reached in the bag and popped one. Never had one before in my life. And then when I got to San Diego, I was like, oh shit. Oh no, this is real. And I pulled over the Taco Bell parking lot, and I went and got a taco and a Mountain Dew, and I sat in that car for like 5 hours till the shit wore off. And I said, this is real. Because I was explaining that Valium is like marijuana in a pill. So I would come back. Remember, I've already been paid. So whatever difference you have is yours. So minus my expenses, gas, all of that, I would keep, 9,800 plus. And whenever you need some more, I go. Whenever you need some more, I go. But
5 hours?
Huh?
5 hours?
Yeah, I had never done anything like that. Remember, I had, when it came to alcohol, I got drunk at 14 one time, almost drowned in the backyard swimming pool at this dude's house. And I never drank again until I was 30. And plus, coming out of the nation, I was still eating 1 meal a day, no pork and no alcohol, even though I was a criminal. That was still and hypocritically, still praying 5 times a day.
Wow.
I do my prayers like, okay, now let me go make this money. I was still doing that because I'm a little nuts.
Do you still pray? Like
what I do now is more so deep spiritual meditation, almost to a communing level. I don't subscribe to any.
That sounds like some pimp shit. It's like, what do you pray or what, man?
5 times a day as prescribed? No.
Okay.
I still don't eat pork. And you got to understand, coming out of LA, when I was in NOI and even going into Sunni Islam, I saw Islam as my gang. Not as a spiritual thing, but this is my set. It's tattooed on my arm. I'm going to get down because
right.
To me, I was banging for them.
Right.
They did what? They snatched off so-and-so's hijab. Let's go roll on his ass. And we just blast.
They feel that way. The soldiers, they're soldiers.
Soldiers are soldiers.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm gonna have to bang for somebody. Just what set it is this time.
yeah, yeah.
You know, so the pills, I knew that I wouldn't be doing that long.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was just easy. You know, one day you can make $10,000. You know, it's a lot of money to be made in Mexico. At one time, I used to go to Broadway Gym and take some fighters down there, and they weren't that good. And it would be professional Mexican fighters, and they beat the shit out of them. But I would bet on the Mexican fighters, and I would play with the odds and stuff. So I was basically leading those lambs to slaughter. And some of them, they were starting out in boxing. They might make 500 a fight, 700 a fight. I would pay them $2,000. So anytime I went to Tijuana, I always came back with money. You can make a lot of money down there if you're willing to do anything.
Well, you sound like a real entrepreneur. So, with that type of thinking, did you ever parlay this into legal stuff?
Well, I had a trucking company in my 20s right after Along for the Ride. I'm going to tell you something. Only time I ever got screwed over was in the legal world.
Mm.
Everybody in the underworld, everybody in the shadow world always kept their word. They say what they mean what they say, because you ain't got but one lie to tell. And there's going to be a boomerang effect on that.
Yeah.
There's no courts, there's no lawyers. It's just, we come.
Street justice.
1 carload, 2 carloads, 3 carloads, we go in there.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter how young the person is sleeping or how old, they're not waking up. And you know that going in. So no one lies to each other. And if we can't keep our word, we say so. But when I had my trucking company, it was rules that I'm not used to people playing by. I'm honestly used to somebody saying something and doing it.
Mm-hmm.
If I say something, I'm going to do it. If I give you my word, I don't care what it costs me, I'm going to keep it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that, and in OI, we have something called your word is your bond and your bond is your life. Don't break your word. That's a saying that they have, FOI have. So if you're saying you're going to be here at 8 o'clock, don't be a day late or a dollar short. That's not 8:01. That's not 7:59. That's 8 o'clock. That clock strikes 8:02. It's a problem. I suggest you wake up earlier. You know, so that's what I'm coming from. And I take that wherever I went. So the trucking company, it lasted for a year or so. And then I had an adult bookstore in Inglewood. It was on the borderline of Inglewood and Hawthorne. It was I'm trying to remember the address, but you know where Norm's is on Century and Hawthorne Boulevard? Or La Brea, it depends. It was a Norm's right there. They changed it to Norma's, and I think it's IHOP now. But I had an adult bookstore right there. So I had to deal with city permits and all of that kind of thing. And that lasted almost a year. You know, I had porn stars working in there, and we had a stage to where they do signings.
For some reason, when you said the adult bookstore, I'm thinking, okay, that had to be a front for something.
No, that was actually, there was no illegal activity going on there. That was just pornography.
Ah, okay, okay.
I sold DVDs and sex toys, and I was eventually going to get lingerie in there. But then Inglewood came in over some permit issues, had to close for 30 days, couldn't clear up the permit issues because it got real political. You know, and it was killing me because they were letting weed shops come up left and
Permit,
right.
What you need a license for? What was the permit? You were
Well,
selling that wasn't or something, or
you want the truth?
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, tell us. I don't
When I
expect
went to when I went to open it with the permits, they were taking too long. You know, come back in 30 days. Okay, we're going to have this hearing to make sure you run it this way, and that took too long. So I just opened up anyway. I just opened up, put the sign up and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Did what I wanted to do, and they rolled on me.
Right, right.
I was in the porn game then. I had to box up everything, take it back to the warehouse, and it eventually gets sold. You know, but yeah, it was cool, but that was legit. There was nothing underhanded going on there. Nothing.
So I mean, you got a lot of experience with a lot of different things, and all of them have to do with making money.
Yeah.
So how do you how do you take all those, I would say, skills, because they are skills, and put that into this thing, this platform that takes you to whatever next level you're trying to get to?
Where my brother used to say, wherever you go, there.
Is this part of the whole book venture?
Well, my brother used to tell me, wherever you go, there you are. So, and I remember in school they used to tell you, no matter what, no one can take your education from you. I didn't know what those things meant until I got older. Everything I've learned, I still know my timetables, still know how to ride a bike. Everything I've learned, I still know. So all of that collection, it takes you where you are. Now, remember when I told you I was writing songs for Grand Jury, Warner Brothers, My Conception, all of that? Writing was still my passion, but I didn't have time to write. That's why Pimp Game came out in '98, the first one. The Alone for the Ride came out in '99. My third book, Pimpin' Ain't Easy, didn't come out to 2018. I didn't write for almost 20 years because I was doing this. Now I just sit and live as a reclusive writer. I mean, I've seen 3 deer since I've lived here, so it wasn't like I want to make money now. It was like win, lose, or draw, rich, poor, or middle class, I want to be a professional writer for the rest of my life. I want to do what makes me happy. I have more life behind me than I have in front of me. And I didn't want my legacy to say, here lies the body of Mickey Royal. He committed crimes. He died. The end. No. So writing was my first love. I wrote my first play at age 5 and acted it out at preschool. And I wrote my first book.
At age 5, what are you writing a play about?
It was called The Three Wise Men. You know about the nativity scene and all of that? Because we had that at the preschool. So I started writing about it and putting people's, like, their name and characters, because they told us who all the characters were, and I would put down what they say in dialogue. And the teacher saw me doing it. And she said that this was extraordinary, and we acted out, but I didn't write myself. I didn't have a character to write myself in as. So she said, write yourself in as a character. And I said, there's no more characters in the story. So I wrote myself in as God. And I actually have that picture of me anointing the 3 wise men on my Facebook. I'm sure I'm small. I'm sitting in a chair with a halo in my hand and this big old afro. So I was Jehovah in that story.
So your skills were recognized like from very young.
Yeah. And skills are just like seeds in a field. They have to be cultivated. You can have all the seeds in the world, but without, sunlight and water, they're not going to grow.
So doing all your different experiences and all that, and all the different paths you were going through, were you still writing the whole time, or did you? I mean, I know you said you took that one break. What you said, 13 through 18 or something.
It's
other stuff. Were you still writing in some type of capacity?
I stopped writing songs around 17 when the Warner Brothers Conception deal fell apart. Then I wanted to do it some more. So I started, these are rap songs. So at 19, I started rapping again.
What year was this? Because you said My Conception and all that. Because
I was in the 9th grade.
Because My Conception, his name was going around the air like in the 80s, late 80s.
That's when it was. It was mid to late. Wherever it was, I was in the 9th grade. Okay. 9th, 10th grade, because that's, I think, more so the 10th grade. And I remember him, Barefoot Pookie, they was all living together basically in Carson on the street Sandpoint. And I
remember the house because he had.
Yeah, it's the last one on the right.
Yeah, carpet.
Yeah, and you come in through the garage, which was already decked out. Huh?
You had to take your shoes off.
You had to take your shoes off.
Shoes off.
Yeah. You remember that movie, The Players Club?
Yeah.
Yeah, St. Louis, that's Mike with that voice, that pointing to, hey, I'm gonna take care of myself. Yeah, I said, that's Mike.
I didn't even think about that today.
Yeah, as soon as I saw his face, I said, he even looks like him with the same. I said, that's Mike in the wheelchair and everything. Yeah. So I would check in over there on the weekends and stuff. And I signed a management contract with him. And I wrote a song that he really dug, but he wanted somebody else to do it. And that kind of took the air out of my balloon, you know. And I was like, wow. So, because, you want to be famous. And that took the air out of my balloon. Now, that's when I just went total FOI after that. And like I said, when I met him, I had a Jerry curl. When I stopped dealing with him, my hair was bald. And I used to come over suited and booted with the bow ties and stuff, still writing songs. So when I went back into rapping around 18, 19, remember I was still in high school. I was in high school 6 years. So I did 9th, 10th, 11th, 11th, 12th, and 12th with summer school and night school.
Wow.
I told people I got a PhD in high school. And keep in mind, my mother's a retired teacher, so she's like, oh, God, So when I went back into music and stuff, I performed at Gazeri's one night, and Atlantic Records saw it. And, I remember when that was, because the riots happened. So that must have been April 29th, 1992, around that time, because the riots was going on.
You performed what you do? You say you performed.
I performed 2 songs.
You sang or you rapped? Or you?
I can't sing. I sound like Froggy from the Little Rascals. I couldn't carry a tune across the street.
I didn't know about the rapping.
Oh, yeah. That was my thing. Okay. And all of this was going on at the same time, but I was still, writing. When I was FOI, I was writing, but the songs changed. Everything was pro-black then. But then when I came back at 19, remember, I'm back in the street, so everything is cool, laid back ladies man, that kind of thing. And my dress style was always black. My coats are usually 1 inch from the floor. And I had all these black trench coats. I always wore black, and I always wore fedoras. Even in later part of high school, I looked like an undertaker all the time. And they loved it. When I performed, I had the 2 girls dancing, and we didn't know what it was called then, but it was twerking. But we didn't have a name for it then. We just called it booty shaking. And they had that, and I had the chick that was dancing that was doing backflips and stuff like a real dancer. And I was gonna do my Big Daddy Kane thing. And they really liked it. And when the riots happened, certain things didn't go. The guy who hooked up the deal with Atlantic Records, his name was Lance Parker. And if you remember anything about LA, he was the 5th man in the Reginald Denny shit. He's the one that had the shotgun. And when he got arrested, I was supposed to sign a contract Friday going into there. It was Playground Records, but it was distributed through Atlantic. Mixmaster Spade was on that label. And I met him the night I performed all of that. And this is my loyalty again, getting me in trouble. Lance got arrested. He's dead now. He passed away. He had a stroke. And I went to the front door at Gazeri's. It's Billboard Live now on Sunset. It's right next to the Roxy, but it was called Gazeri's back then. And I stood out front, and I walked in. And he said, "You're here to see David." I don't know David's name, but he was short and Jewish. But I never knew his last name. He was just David. He said, "You're here to see David, aren't you?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Come right in." And I stood there and I said, "Lance ain't here. This don't feel right." Not being an older man, I should have signed with them, got my $160,000 signing bonus, and just broke Lance off when he got out.
Right.
Or went to see him and say, "Do you want it on your books? You want me to give it to your parents, or you want me to hold it for you? Or would you like it in another account?" Didn't know all of that then. I just felt like I was doing something behind his back. So I said, "No, I'll wait till he gets out and we'll do the deal." Lance will get out for another year. By then, that's when you pick up from Along for the Ride. Because when the Lance stuff happened, that's at the same time where Along for the Ride starts. With me being 19, in the beginning of the book, that's where that starts. I didn't put that part in there, but that's when that starts. And you know what happened after that, and I eventually had to leave for 5 years, and that was gone. That whole Lance was out doing something different. I mean, the Gazeri's was Billboard Live now, and that's over with.
And there you have it. Subscribe, like, share, and support the channel for more groundbreaking content.
Mickey Royal, the pimpin'est man on the planet, you dig? Keep representing this gang. From the chairman of the board, recently anointed pimp god, Chet.